Grüß, willkommen in einem and in an Alfregens video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 7 of my battle series of videos. This video will cover the Battle of Marsyas, which was a battle fought between the Persians and the Koreans in 496 BC. This video is mainly focused on looking at the battle from a figure gaming point of view, which includes order of battle, troop types and flow of the battle. If you wish a big picture of why the battle was fought, then this may not be the video for you, but if you want to know about the troop types, force mixes and what actually occurred on the battlefield, then continue to view on. This is yet another video of a battle where there's almost no information. I only have a few words by Herodotus, and the rest is assumption. As with the other videos, you better prepare your salt. First point to define is who are the Carians? Specifically, what army lists from DBMM should I use? Carians were described by Herodotus of being of Minoan descent, while he reports that the Carians themselves maintained that they were Anatolian mainlanders, intensely engaged in seafaring and were akin to the Mysians and the Lydians. The Carians refer to the shrine of Zeus at Marsyas, which it shared with the Mysians and Lydians, proving kind of that they were a brother race. I'm uncertain if I should class the Carians as Ionian Greeks or not, and will instead assume they are similar to Lydians, at least in terms of their troop types available. It's possible their troops were closer to the Greeks in structure and organisation, but the Lydians do have hoplites, so I think it makes probably little difference. I'll first cover the order of battle and troop types of the Carian army. We have few clues about the size of the army. The Carians are supposed to have lost 10,000 men, and those which escaped were large enough to join up with reinforcements to fight another battle. It seems the army range is probably from between 15,000 and 20,000 men. This is the only clue I possess in terms of army size. The only scenario I could find concerning the battle was command and colour, shown here. As this is about the only force mix source I possess, I'm going to attempt to convert this into a more usable force mix. One point about the date, most quote 497 BC, however it's likely the actual date of this battle was 496 BC. Only a minor point, but thought I'd raise it. If we assume the Carian army consists of 20,000 men, then each counter in command and colour represents about 2,000 men. If we assume Lydian troop types, we can then convert this into a force mix reasonably simply. This shows a possible force mix. I have used command and colour as the basic template and modified this based on the DBMM Lydian army list. The only unusual point is the lack of cavalry. Let's now look at the troop types through the prism of DBMM version 2.1 army list. I do find it strange there is no cavalry, but this is possible even though it is very unlikely. The Carians fielded about 6,000 auxilia, which may be this troop type. I also assume at least 6,000 of the war bands are this troop type as well. Warriors, basically. The Carians fielded about 6,000 hoplites, which according to DBMM were reasonably good quality hoplites. Once again, according to command and colour, the Carians fielded about 8,000 war bands or barbarian infantry, which could be this troop type. DBMM seems to indicate the number should be much lower. I'd suspect closer to 2,000, with the remainder being warriors. Once again, according to our command and colour army list or order of battle, the Carians possess 6,000 light infantry, which could include archers as well as the typical javelin that you would expect. The rest of the light infantry would have been armed with javelin. It's now time to cover the Persian army. We have less information about the Persian army. They inflicted a major victory against the Carians, so I have to assume that their number was in excess of 20,000 men. The battle was hard fought, so it could not have been much more than 20,000 men. I'll now go back to my command and colour force mix and assume each counter represents 2,000 men. The Persian army would consist of 30,000 men, according to this ratio, which does seem a bit high. As the Persians did win the battle, they must have outnumbered the Carians. It was a hard-fought battle, so I would originally suspect that they probably consisted of close to 25,000 men, but the Persians were not able to use their outflanking tactics, so they may have needed 30,000 men to defeat the Carians in this particular case. While the number of 30,000 men may be correct, the troop composition needs to be adjusted. The Persians' main infantry consisted of medium troops in the front with bowmen in the rear. Most men would be bow-armed, and the medium and auxilia combined consisted of this troop type. The lack of cavalry is puzzling, but I'll not change that. The numbers of light infantry are rather high here. As with the Carian army list, I've used command and colour as my starting point and modified it based on the DBM version 2.1 army list. Once again, the only unusual point is the lack of cavalry, which really does annoy me, but I'll just stay with the command and colour order of battle. I'm guessing there may have been some reason why both sides had so few cavalry. The battle was being fought in reasonably rough terrain, but that never seemed to stop the Persians before. Anyway, I'll continue on. Let's now drill down and look at the possible troops in more detail that were involved in the battle, using once again the DBMM army list. The Persians had 2,000 medium cavalry, which were most likely standard Persian medium cavalry, also including Bactrian mediums, etc., but all much the same. The bulk of the light foot were probably standard Persian infantry, which by Greek standards would be considered as light. These probably consisted of about 20,000 men. It's possible some equivalent allied troops were included in this total, but without some evidence, I'll stay with this simplest solution. The Persians are supposed to have fielded 8,000 light troops, but some of these may be this particular troop types. In addition to the previous light troop types that we've mentioned, from the 8,000 light troops, some would have almost certainly been archers as well, skirmish archers. Finally, and most likely, the bulk of the light troops or skirmish total would have been javelin. When the Carians revolted, the largest Persian army in the region went down south to deal with it. I have to assume the Carians had advanced as far as Marsyas, where they met the Persian army. I have no real idea where the battle was fought, but the river Marsyas was on the line of advance of the Persians. Most sources seem to show the battle being fought around the yellow box, but I suspect the actual location was the red box. This image, incidentally, is from Google Earth, and you can look at it yourself. This shows the battlefield according to command and colour. This could be accurate. The river behind the Persians and a river on the Persian flank, or with a river behind the Persians. I suspect the flank area river was on the other flank, but, I don't know. This map could also be correct. The opposite flank should contain some broken terrain, but that could be represented by the map edge. The remainder of the playing area is flat and cultivated ground. Using trusty Google Earth, this is my guess of the location of the battle. And look, I have to admit, I could be completely wrong. In this case, the Carian position is bounded by mountains to the left and a larger river to the right. In front of them is a smaller river, which may be the Marsyas River. Most maps have this battle to the south of this position, but I can't find any location which makes sense according to the minimal references that I have, unless the river was on a flank rather than the rear of the Persian position. In the minimal sources we have, we know that the Carians were debating if they should defend with the river to their rear, or actually it's a small stream or a very small river or large stream, as this map should show. In the end, they decided against this particular deployment. The Carians decided to withdraw over the stream or river and decided to adopt this position when the Persians arrived. The command and colour playing area has a river on the Carians' left flank. While possible, I suspect it was actually the opposing flank. On the other hand, the way the river flows do change, and this may well have been the case 2,000 years ago. Who knows where the river flowed that far back in history. The Persians decided to move up to the river and decided to cross it. I'm uncertain why the Carians did not decide to contest the crossing. Perhaps they thought the Persians would have outflanked them if they did this. And anyway, if they decided to defend the river, the Persians may have decided not to cross and do something else. So this way, the Carians know that the Persians will cross the river. There will be a river to their rear, which they think will give them some benefit. Because the Persian left flank had a river and the right had rough ground, they could not attempt to outflank the Carians. This could be why the fight was as difficult as the accounts indicate, even though the Persians outnumbered the Carians. We do know from our minimal sources the fight continued for a long time and was very difficult, but finally the Persians managed to win, causing significant losses among the Carians, up to half their army. This makes me think that the Persians did attempt an outflanking move, which would have taken a long time. Hitting the Carians in the rear on one flank would have caused these massive casualties. On the other hand, the casualties most likely or could have occurred in the pursuit. The Persians would have had a reasonable amount of light troops and cavalry, and they tend to do very well when they're pursuing other people running away from them. And so we end another video which covers another of my wild guesses. The reason why I'm doing these videos is to create scenarios for the Greek-Persian Wars for my DBMM troop type based set of rules, which in turn is based on an SPI board game. I need some good battles, and I have a particular liking of the Persian force mix, the early Archimedean Persian forces rather than the later ones. For those interested, this shows a possible force mix for the battle using DBMM troop types and the DBMM army list. While this does use DBMM points value, there is a slight modification for certain types of leaders, as I'm using this for P17CW rules, which is the SPI pre-stag rules, which requires these changes. But this is the only change. The points values of the this only changes the points values of the leader only by a few points, so you could use this for a pure DBMM game if you so desire. What you see here is a 177-point Persian army against a 125-point Carian army. And so we come to an end of part 7 of my military history series of videos covering the battles that occurred during the Greek-Persian Wars. I'm not certain if this was something specific to the period, but the battles I've covered so far all seem to be unusually similar to each other. This battle is a bit more unusual due to the lack of cavalry and could be more interesting, but even in this battle the Persians may have attempted an outflanking move with their limited number of cavalry. It's almost as if the Persians have a basic strategy which they keep on repeating for all their battles. This is similar to the Carthaginian strong flank, weak centre strategy, which Hannibal in particular seemed to employ in most of their early battles in the Second Punic War. Anyway, an interesting observation. Alle guten Dingen kommen zu einem Ende.